Hey, Rashad.
Welcome back, everybody. This is whatever it is. This is Road 5K Subs. My name is Rashad Milligan. If you're new to the channel, man, we got my boy Bailey in the building, and we also have a new face. We have Mr. Bryce in the building as well. Bryce, like I said, nice to meet you, man. Give me a little introduction since it's my first time interacting with you.
Yeah. What's up, Rashad? Thanks for having me on. First and foremost, man. That was last minute, but I'm available. But little introduction about myself. I'm Bryce Warner, one half of the Hoodie and the Headband podcast, weekly basketball podcast, talking about everything from NBA, WNBA, college, high school, overseas, whatever. It's just basketball. We talking about it. Um, Contributor over at Multiplicity Media, Sports Collective, everything from sports betting, fantasy. We did a lot of W coverage for them this year. And Nets fan, Aces fan, shout out to my Aces, got it done this year. Finally. But yeah, that's me, man.
All right, Bryce and Bailey. If you'd like to, I guess introduce yourself as well. I know a couple of people on the channel already aware of who you are, but just an introduction again.
I mean, apparently I'm a W Twitter celebrity. Y'all know me. But I'm Bailey, Sparks fan, Sparks media member. We here to talk about it. The vibes, vibing. So ain't much to say about me at this point. Y'all know me.
Hey, I'm Kevin Durant. Anyways, Curt Miller leaves Connecticut for LA at the end of the week. The week began with Rachel Galligan, shout out to Rach, saying that this is going to be a crazy offseason in coaching carousel for the W. She said as many as 6 of the league's 12 coaches could be changing teams and going to different places and stuff. So this is the first marble. WNBA finalists, or however you want to say that, semi-final champion. There's no more Eastern Conference. For a couple of years, Connecticut's always been knocking on that door, but they haven't been able to bust in. And now Curt is headed to LA, and that kind of pretty much closes the door on any chance of Candace Parker having like a one last final dance in LA.
That wasn't happening anyway. That was a pipe. That was a pipe dream.
Yeah. But they hugged that mid-court. Derek Fisher's gone. But guys, just I guess, what was your first initial reaction to Curt flipping sides from East Coast to West Coast?
Go ahead, Bryce.
Oh yeah. Me, a little surprising, but not too surprising. I know me and my co-host, shout out to Tariq. We talked about how, like, what does Connecticut do after coming up short once again? And we was talking about how they would blow it up. We didn't know how exactly that it would look, but now we see how it'll look with Curt Miller going to LA. Definitely an upgrade for LA from Derek Fisher to Curt Miller. I think anybody would have been an upgrade from Derek Fisher, honestly. But it's interesting, man. It'll really be interesting. Candace really gonna go off on the Sparks whenever she sees them now, because Curt Miller is the head coach. I just think it was interesting, and I really want to see what Connecticut does going forward, like what direction they go in terms of who they get as their head coach, if they make any changes, like with their players or anything, if they move anybody around, any pieces around, like where do they go from here? Is this like a total rebuild, or is this something where they still stay competitive, or do they make pieces to, still be title contenders next season? We got a long ways to go till May, so we'll see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I was very shook. I was very shook when I saw the Rachel Galligan tweet, because I had been wondering, and I said this in my little quick reaction yesterday with Corey. I had been really wondering about the Sparks process this offseason. Last time they were here hiring a coach, it was Derek Fisher, and it was a one-target process. They didn't look anywhere else. They didn't hire. As far as I know, I don't think they even interviewed anyone else, and I didn't know if that was going to be a similar process this time, if that was their mindset going into it. I'd really hope they had vetted the field. I thought there were some good options available if they wanted to do that. I had verbally shown support on our pod. I had talked about Teaspoon maybe snagging her from the Pelicans or going to Lisa Leslie route if you want to get another local star or whatever. I had been looking at a lot of former players. I didn't even think about Curt leaving Connecticut like this. Especially with their I feel like they've got unfinished business, and I didn't think that there was really a chance. I mean, he's got the connection to LA, but I never thought that would be strong enough to do this. But you get an A-tier coach in his league who is guaranteed to win you regular season games and get you right on the doorstep, maybe a change of scenery, a change of roster construction. Maybe that can get him over the hump. I've been critical of Curt at times, and that's not going to change just because he's my coach, my team's coach now. But I am very curious to see what he can do with. Right now, we only have 5 players on the roster, but what he can do with a different roster doesn't have 8 bigs and 2 guards and 1 shooter. So yeah, I mean, I'll dive into some of the rest of my analysis later, but that was my initial reaction to the hiring.
No, I heard it. I think if I'm not mistaken, at some point at the end of Connecticut season, someone said it was either him or like AT or one of them. They were like, we've been doing this for a while now, knocking on the door, coming up short. If we don't get over the hump this time, like we're blowing it up. For more or less worse, I believe I heard someone say something along those lines at the end of the season, near the end of the season. So, I mean, to hear that and then to kind of see it, it was like, okay, yeah, like, like Bryce was saying earlier about like he wasn't completely surprised that they're starting this new thing in Connecticut now, but I don't know. I think it's always still a bit surprising when someone leaves their team for another when they were so successful at the past place. But like you said, Bailey, like maybe this change of scenery in a different time zone on the other side of the country is like what kind of like pushes him over and stuff, especially with so much cap space and it's in a city that everybody wants to play in, everybody wants to live in and stuff. So I don't know, just very kind of attractive option and an opportunity for him there. And now I guess, looking at the rest of the league, what do you guys see for Dallas? What do you guys see for Connecticut now? What do you guys see for, I guess the rest of the league?
It's really tough to gauge because the W coaching carousel is very different from other sports. Like if we were talking about the NBA, we would say, well, there's probably X assistant coach, Y assistant coach, whatever. There's a lot of coaching tree. I mean, you look at the Popovich coaching tree, and it's like half the league at this point. Even the Budenholzer under Pop, even below there. Like there's a lot of different branches, and a lot of times you see assistant coaches moving up. Those conversations don't seem to happen as much in the W. And I personally think it's because it's still a small league, and you can still compete with even a middle level coach because of the talent level. I think a lot of times, or sometimes, teams are scared to go with an unproven name, except in the case of Derek Fisher for whatever reason. But they're scared to go with an unproven name for a variety of reasons, especially because once coaches are around, they're usually there. They don't come and go. And so that makes me think about a coach like Walt Hopkins is probably still floating around looking for a job. If Curt Miller can move, I think anybody can move. The only coaches in my head that are probably secure, truly, would be Tebow and Noel Quinn. Like those would be the only 2 that I think would probably be locked in, and Tanisha Wright probably because she's just getting started. Outside of those 3, like if Curt Miller can move, it wouldn't surprise me if Cheryl Reeve can move. It wouldn't surprise me if I had him in my brain. If Sandy Brondello could move, like it wouldn't surprise me if any of these coaches can move. And so especially if someone who's tapped in like Rachel is saying it can be chaos. Me not being as tapped in with as Rachel is and looking more so through what she says and what others say, I'm expecting the most. I mean, we could see Cheryl Reeve to Dallas. I don't know. Let's just throw some chaos out there. I don't think that happens, but the way it's shaping up and the way you're hearing it be talked about, and the way that the first domino was such a huge domino, let's get weird. Let's get wild.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, just expecting the unexpected at this moment. To add on to the list of untouchables, I think Becky Hammond is still, not going nowhere either.
That's a given. That's so implied. I didn't even think about it.
But outside of what you said Noelle Quinn, TiVo, Becky Hammond, and who was the last person you said? Oh, Tanisha Wright. Out of those four, I think they stay, like Bailey said, and then that leaves what? 8 other teams, 7 other teams, whatever.
And not all those teams even have coaches. I mean, because Connecticut's gonna need to hire, Dallas is gonna need to hire. Yep. Like, you've got 2 vacancies with, we'll say, 5 non-vacancies that could be vacancies. Like, and then you've got multiple targets in the vicinity. But again, it's going to require someone to go after someone who either maybe not as proven, or maybe promote from an assistant, maybe go from a player, right? Like, there's a lot of different routes that can be taken. We haven't even touched on the Fever.
Yeah.
And earlier in the year, they were connected to, was it Katie Smith and the coach, the one in Atlanta, whose name escapes me at this moment, but an assistant coach who has been an assistant coach at a lot of different levels for like 20 years and been very successful at all those spots. But will they take that risk? Especially with a young team developing, your margin for error might be arguably lower than a set team because they're so much more moldable and malleable. So curious to see how they do. I mean, there's just a lot, like, I think somebody's going to end up having to take one of those risks that you don't always see taken in the W this season because of that, because there's just so many. Obviously there's vacancies, but then I think there are teams looking to shift directions and things of that nature, but they're going to have to take that risk.
Two questions, right? Or 2 coaches right here. Same question. Cheryl and Mike. Do you think either one of those coaches retire this offseason?
This offseason, no.
Because you think if they would have done it, they would have done it already.
It would have been like an announcement, or it would have been like a in the season thing, or I don't think it would have been an off season thing with those two. Those two are just 2 of the better coaches in the league's history. I think they're just better than, I'm just gonna retire mid-season.
Okay. All right. So those 2, and then all right. So does anyone, I guess, hop from the NBA to the W this off season? I know Bailey was mentioning Teaspoon already. Does anyone else make that hop over this off season?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I can't think of anyone else that I would even think that would do that other than Teaspoon. And I think she just locked in with New Orleans again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's probably pretty satisfied. And New Orleans is Zion's finally healthy, and
she gave him a safe place to cry.
Yeah, and I mean that's important. That's very important. I was just thinking about that. And they also just look so good on that court.
Yeah.
And I think this year with them, and they've got a newer head coach. Well, he's been there for what, 2-3 seasons now at this point. Willie Green.
It might be his second season.
Yeah, it's either second or third. I know he hasn't been there long.
Stan was fired after the bubble. He was in the bubble,
Okay,
right?
then
Am I
yeah, so
tripping?
it's I'm
Okay. So
gonna
he was
be
fired
honest.
after the bubble.
I don't follow the NBA as close as I once did, so sure. But yeah, I think she's still locked in there and doing a lot of learning. And this year for them, if all goes well, this is going to be a really great year for her to learn a lot about how to have a competitor, how to be in a contender. So, and obviously she's very good at what she does. I mean, I've heard multiple players shout her out. So I don't think she's in any hurry, but I do think in the future she will be a W head coach.
Yeah, does Lisa Leslie jump in? Does dude, when you look at the former players, Mississippi State's whole coach for a brief period of time, Nikki McCray, does she jump in the fold of WNBA coaching? Anybody like that?
I would love to see Lisa on a W sideline. I
Same.
would.
Same.
I would, but I don't know. I don't know how feasible that really is. I don't know. It's tough to gauge again, but to me, I thought when the Sparks were hiring last, I thought that they would give her a look. I thought that would be a good time to do it. Now I don't know how much interest she has in it. Personally, I mean, I know she's still doing Big Three and things of that nature, but I don't know how much interest she has at this point. I thought she had more interest then than she does now. Is what I'm getting at.
I heard it. For the GM spot, who's filling in the GM spot for LA?
If they're smart, me. Nah. That's another good question because I don't know. Like you got your coach GM combinations, and when it comes to filling in that GM spot, like again, where do they look? You want to get someone ideally with experience. You want to get someone who knows what they're doing. And I was talking with Sabrina Merchant about it yesterday because she's she's more connected and closer to the Sparks and has been there a little longer from the media side than I have. And it isn't as uncommon in the W as it is in other leagues to hire your coach before your GM, which they've done. And being that Curt Miller has that former GM experience, I think it will be a little easier for them to find a GM that he can work with because he knows what goes on. That being said, I don't know a name. I don't know a name that because aside from the coach GMs in the league, I don't think I could name a GM outside of Dan Padover in Atlanta. Like I really don't think I could. Just because like that's a name that doesn't often get the shine. You don't often always see
From Vegas. The Vegas GM.
What's his name? Her name. Like what you see what I'm saying? Like
I forgot.
Hold on. Let me look this up. Give me two.
They said it at the parade, but I forgot that quote.
Because I know Nikki Farks is the president, Mark Davis is the owner.
No. See that was my fault because I thought Nikki was the GM.
No, Nikki's not.
I definitely don't know Natalie Williams. Apologies.
See, I know Natalie Williams.
You said the name. I remember it now.
No.
I didn't know.
I wouldn't have got that. I would have been like Nikki Ferguson.
But yeah, I mean, it's Greg Bibbs the GM, isn't he? Of the Wings, is he the GM or is he the owner still? I don't know. But
hold on, let me see.
But yeah, like I genuinely like GMs are because that's more behind the scenes. Usually, it's more of the business side hire that we don't always see unless you're like super tapped in. So unless they poach someone like they did with Curt,
yeah,
it's a wild card. Bryce, what you think? You think they're gonna snag somebody?
Greg, wait. By the way, Greg is the president.
Greg is the president.
and I shook his hand one time, and I was like, "Hey, man, are you the PR person?" He was like, "No, I'm the team president." I was like, "Oh, I apologize." And
You should have slapped him after you did.
Goodness. But nah,
Salute to Greg.
I don't know
No.
anybody that comes to mind either GM wise. I just further think of like why did they give Derek Fisher GM power and to begin with.
It's wild.
I don't know,
It's
man.
wild.
It's like why, like you see what Derek Fisher did with the Knicks, and you think to get this guy GM power after that?
People called me crazy for hating on it.
I don't know, man. But I'm just glad that Sparks are making a move in the right direction as far as everything. They added some good pieces to their roster last year. I know they only got 5 people on the roster currently though, so it just looks like they're moving in the right direction now. You know,
I
getting
agree.
back to winning, and that's always good to see a team making right decisions. You know, regardless if it's your team or if it's your rival, or whatever. If you want to see teams be good and make good decisions, and I think that's what the Sparks are en route of making good decisions. This is like step 1 to a new team identity. So whoever they pick for GM,
right,
I think will pair right up with Curt Miller and be someone that'll work well and work towards turning that franchise around, getting back to the playoffs.
And before we go a step further, I know I'm here with 2 fans of this player. Do you think Curt Miller's signing to the Sparks impacts Lexi Brown returning to the team?
I'm thinking you're gonna say Kennedy. Like I think you said.
No, Kennedy's locked. Kennedy's one of the 5 players already on.
Yeah, on the roster.
But you know, there's history with Curt and Lexi.
Oh man, when you said that, I was like history, and I'm thinking it's like the Liz Cambage thing, and then I was like, oh, I remember, bro.
Yeah.
She hates Connecticut, bro.
I-
She said it like remember when she used to be vlogging in the Wobble? It was like one episode of the vlogs where she was like, "Hey y'all, like I love beating Connecticut." Like she goes on like this whole 5-minute thing about like hating Connecticut and not having opportunity and sitting on the bench at the beginning of February. Yeah, I don't know. I think this definitely affects something, you know, because now she's like proving herself to be a reliable professional. And you know what I'm saying? And I feel like Lexi's kind of like, I don't know, Lexi. So Lex, if you see this, I apologize. You know what I'm saying? I'm speaking just from an outside perspective. This is for entertainment purposes only, Lex. Entertainment purpose. But you know, she seems kind of like a vengeful person, you know what I'm saying? Like petty. Like I'm not doing that just for him. So yeah, I think it definitely affects her, you know, chances of coming back. Go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, nah, I don't know either. I know Lexi was a good part to what the Sparks had going on last season. She contributed well, you know, gave them some shooting, was able to like you guys have said, she became a reliable pro. So I think in terms of bringing Lexi back, like contract wise or whatever, just talking, I guess, understanding, like it's up to if the Sparks want to bring her back ultimately. I would like to see Lexi back in purple though. I would like to see her back with the Sparks instead of her bouncing around from team to team. Like I feel like she needs a home.
I agree with that. I just think she's petty.
Yeah.
I don't know if petty is the word I would say because it has such a strong like negative connotation, but you know, I mean, she doesn't forget, and rightfully so. But I want Lexi back on LA. I thought she had a great year and really provided a lot of value as one of the best shooters in the league. I loved her defensive effort. You know, she really established herself as what we always thought she could be, especially after AU. Like I really credit a lot of AU for what she did, and she has too. You know, she's talked about what AU did for her, but obviously that history is not great. It makes me wonder. But hiring a competent coach and a good coach does make me feel better about the Sparks re-signing their other free agents, Neka, Janae, Britt, and remaining competitive with those three mainly. I don't think AZB's coming back. I think that bridge was burned after the whole Liz scenario. But I think that this signing helps LA have the pool that an LA team should have as a free agent destination, especially an LA team with almost $1 million worth of cap space this season. So I am optimistic that this move opens up the Sparks' window to compete for the next, at least the next 2 or 3 years. I've said before, I would love to see them give NECA like a 2-year, 3-year with a player option. So if things don't go as planned, she can go, if she wants to, somewhere else. But I'm confident, more confident now because, Janae just said when asked about it, she's like, well, when NECA goes, I go. And NECA was like, I want to come back to LA, but she's always going to say that. That's just what she's going to say. Like, that's just what it is, Yeah, and if the opportunity wasn't right, I would not have been surprised if she took off. But at the end of the day,
He did give Candace Parker a hug. We have to remember this.
And Chelsea Gray just won a ring in Vegas. Like, there's connections there. But no, I think Curt really helps revamp that. But the free agency market is going to be interesting now because they have so many, but there's also so many good options in the W this year. Like free agency is going to be wild as well.
Where does Lex go if she leaves LA? I'm looking at Dallas, I'm looking at Indiana, and then like always, of course, with Atlanta people, I'm always looking at maybe Atlanta or home.
Vegas.
Wow.
Yeah, come to Vegas, yo.
Wow.
Come to Vegas.
I'm serious. They need another trustworthy bench player, extra shooting, extra defense, and vibes.
Vibes, yes, she brings that.
I'm just being honest. Like her and Sid Colson, and Kirsten Bell, like would be comedy.
Yeah, like the AU connection there. I didn't even think about that with Sid and Lex.
Yeah.
They could pull that off. That's nice.
That would be very nice. And they see Vegas
is tough, man.
Vegas has like their top players locked, and they've got a few rookie contracts, and they've got like, I don't remember the exact number, but her hoop stats said they have 2 to 3.
All Becky does is shoot threes. Like it's like Becky gets her team like shoot 100 threes tonight. Like that's a Becky. So like that's what Lex wants. I don't know, man. That's a gosh, Lee, that was great. I didn't even think of that until y'all said it.
I thought this through.
All right.
I've thought about this a lot, but
I guess, wrapping up now. Any last thoughts on Curt Miller? Anything else going on in the W this offseason? All the shift and focus is really about to go to, college season. So this is kind of like the last thing. We're gonna do the lottery in a couple weeks, and that's it. So any last thoughts, Curt Miller, WNBA offseason, before we go on a little mini hiatus of W?
What you got, Bryce?
I just think this is the first of many surprising moves and transactions that we see in this offseason. Like I said, we got a long way till May, so it's a lot that could happen. Think this is a good move for LA, and like I mentioned before, like we mentioned, it's a good move for LA. Interested to see what Connecticut goes after this. Just sitting back and watching it unfold at this point.
Yeah, that's it. The free agency period could be very interesting, especially with prioritization kicking in soon. And if you look at the free agent list, like there's a potential that we're looking at a drastically different league next year. Like you see, like I look at the list, you see Stewie, NECA, Sloot, Emma, like all these like top tier names, and then a lot of above average, like high end role players like Izzy Harrison and people in that caliber. And there's just a chance that, a lot of times we talk about the W being 2, 3, maybe 4 championship contenders. The next 6 are like playoff caliber teams, and then you got like 2 tanking teams. There's a chance next year, like you're looking at 4 or 5 real contenders. Then you've got a really deep playoff, and then you maybe have like 1 tanking team.
I think there were 5 this year, right? Because wasn't Washington a 5th seed?
I was thinking Washington would have been a sneaky contender. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was
They'll be a team
Vegas,
that can disrupt
Seattle,
the team's chance at
Washington, Connecticut, and who's a 5th team? If Washington
Seattle?
was a 5th seed this
Seattle?
year, I said Seattle.
Seattle was 5th.
Chicago. You just said
Chicago. Yeah. I thought there was 5 this year.
Everybody
I
thought
didn't-
Chicago was gonna repeat. Everybody
think
thought
they were-
Chicago
Oh
was gonna repeat.
yeah.
I thought they were too. I thought the realistic contenders were Chicago, Vegas, and Connecticut coming into the season. Obviously, and I said this a bunch of times, like Seattle proved me very wrong. I thought they were going to have a down year by their standards. They proved me very wrong. I thought Washington was a dark horse. I thought Seattle and Washington were like the high B tier, or whatever tier you want to look at, like the really high B tier that could have dark horse their way into the top. But I didn't view them as contenders in the traditional sense. And then from there, like you had outside of the Fever, and I'll be honest, I thought the Lynx were going to crash and burn. Outside of those two, because I thought they were going to be bad, like you had 5 playoff contender teams. And I think this year, depending on how the moves shake out, like you could have 5, 6, 1 contenders, playoffs, and then lottery. So yeah, I think it could be crazy.
This is a tanking season, isn't it? No. That's next season. That's yeah.
I feel
So
like
that
the
is next
next
season.
I feel like the
Yeah.
next
I felt
3
like
years
last
in a
season
row are
was
tanking
the
seasons.
tank.
Yeah.
I mean, because look at the draft classes that are coming in.
Yeah,
Like
they're gonna
this
be
year,
stacked.
You got Aaliyah Boston, and you got Haley Jones probably going 1 and 2. The next season you got Paige.
Yeah, that Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin
Yeah. So
Clark.
that's the season that everybody's
Caitlin
tanking.
Smith.
Well, what's the girl from Kansas State? Ioka Lee. Won't she be there next year?
Ioka Lee, because she's holding off this year. She got
Right.
hurt. So she's in it. I mean, but that's the class
Angel
everybody's
Reese,
been
isn't
talking
Angel
about
Reese
for
a
4 years.
junior or is she a
Yeah.
senior?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Angel Reese is in that class as well. It
Yeah.
was Paige was number 1, Angel was number 2, and I think who was number 3? I think it was Haley. Haley was number 3.
But I think it's also
I
interesting.
might be all the way off.
It's also interesting. I think you got to consider like the way the W tanking works. Like you have to tank multiple years.
Yeah.
So realistically speaking, like there are teams that already have a leg up in that sense. And so when you factor that in, how much motivation is there to fully tank like that? Because 1 year may not be enough to even get you into the top 3.
Man, listen, I have a theory that Seattle is just gonna end up with the number 1 pick the year that Paige is
Somehow, some way.
whatchamacallit, the way the basketball universe works.
So you think Stewie's going to New York?
Oh, for sure. Stu York, yes.
Stewie's going to New York.
Stewie's going
And
to
then,
New York.
so
I
they're
thought you
bad
were-
this year. They're
last
bad the year after that, and Paige comes. So Paige doesn't go to Minnesota. Minnesota really needs Paige.
Why?
That'd be a nice homecoming as well.
Because Maya Moore it disappeared off the face of the earth.
Okay, whatever you say. But yeah, very interesting. Very interesting year for the W this year. And I like the way it's going to shape up.
All right, young boys, I'll get you guys out of here. It's shortly after noon Eastern at the time we're recording this. Fellas, let the people know where they can find you on social media.
Go ahead, Bryce.
All right, so you can find me at _Bryce Warner on Twitter and TikTok. And then you can find me at _B Warner at on Instagram.
What about your podcast?
Podcast. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, but yeah, podcast. You got the hoodie and the headband. We come on with episodes weekly, maybe twice a week if you feeling good. But yeah, so shout out to my boy Tariq, who is my co-host, my boy, my brother. We just celebrated 1 year with our podcast. And then if you want to read any of our writing, we cover basketball, football, for Multiplicity Media, multiplicitymedia.com, or Multiplicity MMG on social media. So yeah, shout out to everybody involved with that as well. And go Aces, go Nets.
In Nets world.
Nets
And
world, baby.
And shout out to Reek, man. He's at _swish with 2 H's _3 on Twitter. I had to give him a shout out. That's my dog. But y'all know me, man. At Sir_Richmond20 on everything. I'm only on Twitter.
My boy's getting to that point, man.
I'm
where it's
only
like,
on Twitter.
You
Really,
noticed the first time he was on here, it's like,
Instagram.
Sir Richmond, if you guys ever heard of me, this is what I tweet. Now you guys know who I am, man.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, bro. Like, when I saw my throwaway tweet get analyzed in a space, I was like, yeah, nah, by people that have recently unfollowed or blocked me, I'm like, okay, yeah, nah, I'm kind of here. Like literally yesterday, I tweeted, "Hey Curt, bring Jonquel with you, please," and it got like a lot of traction. It was just a throwaway tweet. I was like, okay, cool, I'm here. Whatever.
Not you becoming the Drake of the W space, man. The throwaways.
No. I'm not Drake. I will never be Drake. You're not gonna catch
10
me taking
bands, 100 bands. Fit, come on, man.
Hey, look,
Let's just not even discuss it, man.
All I'm saying is, if I really am this good, somebody need to pay me for it. I'm on the
really
market.
Too young.
Feeling
this.
Talk.
Come on.
Hire me.
Talk. Let them know.
Y'all know where I'm at. I've been on. I say that more coming from. I've been on Rashad's page like 4 times now, so that's more so what I meant. But y'all gonna gas me up anyway. But yeah, tap in with me. And like I said, I'm on the market. If you need some something, I don't even know. I got a pinned tweet with my qualifications.
Hire him.
But also, before I go, Curt, if you hear this, bring Jonquel with you, please. Atone our sins, even though we got a ring out of it from the 2016 draft.
All right, well, you guys heard it here first. Y'all support the boys. Y'all follow the boys. I just followed Bryce. I just met the boy. I just followed him. So y'all do the same thing, man. Let me share the little screen. Let me share the screen just to show you I ain't capping. Come on, man. Stop the play, man. Stop it. All right, man. This is a World 5K sub. My name is Rashad Milligan. Until next time, you gotta take care of yourself.